Today, two women sat in the same chair. One said her husband was too rough, the other said he was too gentle. And somehow they were both describing the same problem. Hi, I'm Dr. Jocelyn, a urologist. And today I want to share something I heard in my clinic that hasn't left my mind. Two women, 1 hour apart, sat in the same chair with opposite complaints about intimacy. Yet they were both describing the same quiet loss. When she said, I feel handled, not held, that wasn't a dramatic complaint. It was a quiet grief. There's something profoundly different between being physically moved and being emotionally embraced. One feels like momentum, the other feels like care. Intensity by itself isn't the problem. Many women enjoy passion, they enjoy urgency, they enjoy being wanted, but intensity without emotional presence can feel hollow, like the body is there, but the heart stepped out of the room. When someone grabs, turns, rushes without pausing to connect, the nervous system notices. The body might respond physically, but emotionally there's a subtle tightening. A question forms beneath the surface. Am I being chosen, or am I just being used to release something? To feel cherished during intimacy is to feel seen in your vulnerability. It's eye contact that lingers for half a second longer. It's a hand that doesn't just move you, but rests on you. It's the difference between pressure and presence. When that emotional signal fades, something inside begins to dim. Not dramatically, not with arguments, just quietly. Anticipation softens, excitement becomes neutral. She said, I stopped looking forward to it. That sentence carries heartbreak in a whisper. Because looking forward to intimacy isn't only about pleasure, it's about connection. It's about feeling wanted in a way that honors your softness, not just your body. There's a tenderness required in long relationships that often gets replaced by routine. What once had curiosity becomes efficiency. What once had reverence becomes default behavior. And over time, urgency can feel transactional if it's not anchored in affection. Being held means feeling safe even in intensity. Feeling emotionally claimed, not just physically positioned, feeling like your partner is with you, not racing toward an endpoint. When a woman feels handled, it can stir loneliness in the middle of closeness. And that's the most disorienting kind of loneliness, the kind that happens while someone's right there. Love in intimacy is often quiet. It's not about technique, it's about attunement. It's sensing when she needs slowing down. It's knowing when firmness is welcome and when softness is sacred. It's adjusting because you care about how she feels, not just how things look or perform. And here's the emotional truth beneath it all. Women don't withdraw because of intensity. They withdraw when intensity replaces connection. When someone feels cherished, even roughness can feel safe. But when connection disappears, even passion can feel empty. To be held is to feel like you matter in that moment, not as a role, not as a body, but as a person. It's the silent message that says, I'm here with you, not ahead of you, not using you, with you. And that feeling, that being with instead of being moved, is what keeps intimacy alive. The second woman wasn't craving something dangerous. She was craving something certain. There's a difference. Over time, her relationship had become so careful, so considerate, so measured that it began to feel sterile. Every move was preceded by a question. Every escalation required verbal confirmation. On paper, that sounds respectful. In practice, something essential had drained out of it. Desire doesn't always speak in full sentences. Sometimes it speaks in energy, in tension, in the way someone closes distance without apologizing for wanting you. She said, sometimes I just want him to stop asking if it's okay. That doesn't mean she didn't value consent. It means she missed feeling claimed by desire instead of managed by caution. When everything becomes overly gentle, the erotic charge can thin out. Not because gentleness is wrong, gentleness is beautiful, but because Eros thrives on polarity, on contrast, on someone leaning in with confidence. There's something deeply intimate about being wanted without hesitation, not grabbed carelessly, not overpowered, but chosen decisively. It's the difference between, is this all right, and I want you. One is safe, the other is electric. When a partner constantly checks, pauses, recalibrates, it can unintentionally communicate uncertainty. And uncertainty cools heat. It shifts the dynamic from instinct to negotiation, from chemistry to compliance. She missed the feeling of being pulled in because he couldn't resist her, not because he ignored her boundaries, but because he trusted their connection enough to move with conviction. In long-term relationships, especially in a culture that emphasizes caution, some men swing so far toward politeness that they disconnect from their own desire. They become observers of the experience instead of participants in it. They ask so many questions that the moment fractures into pieces, and what she was mourning wasn't dominance, it was confidence. Confidence says, I know you. I feel you. I'm choosing you right now. There is love in decisiveness when it comes from attunement. When a partner knows your rhythms, knows your signals, knows the difference between your playful resistance and your real no. Desire that pauses too much can start to feel rehearsed, predictable, overprocessed, and predictability, while comforting, rarely ignites fire. What she longed for was that subtle firmness, the hand that pulls her closer without asking permission every 3 seconds because the relationship already carries trust. The moment where thinking gives way to instinct. Erotic energy needs a little risk, not danger, but the risk of leaning forward without over-editing yourself. When everything is measured, passion becomes polite, and polite passion rarely makes someone feel irresistible. To feel wanted is to feel like someone is drawn towards you with momentum, like there's gravity between you, like your presence sparks something unfiltered. And here's the emotional truth underneath it. She didn't want to be controlled. She wanted to be desired without apology. Love is safety, yes, but desire is heat. And when heat disappears for too long, even the most stable relationship can start to feel lukewarm. She wasn't asking for roughness. She was asking for aliveness. For that moment when someone looks at you and doesn't hesitate, because wanting you feels natural, not negotiated. What struck me most in those two stories wasn't the contrast. It was the symmetry. Two women, 1 hour apart, one grieving the loss of tenderness, the other grieving the loss of hunger. And both were describing the same quiet erosion. Something vital had slipped out of the room. Safety says, you are protected with me. Desire says, I am drawn to you. When those two currents flow together, intimacy feels alive. When one dominates for too long, something starts to thin. Safety is the foundation. It's the way someone's hand softens when you flinch. It's being held without pressure to perform. It's knowing your vulnerability won't be mishandled. Safety lets your body exhale. It tells your nervous system, you're okay here. But desire makes the exhale turn into heat. It's the look that lingers a little too long, the way someone closes distance like they've been waiting all day to. It's that subtle firmness that says, I want you right now, not out of obligation, not out of routine, out of pull. When safety exists without desire, intimacy can become tender but flat, loving but muted. It feels kind but not electric. You feel cared for but not craved. When desire exists without safety, it can feel exciting but unstable, intense but lonely. You feel wanted but not necessarily cherished. The magic is in the movement between the two. And here's the part people miss. That ratio is not fixed. It shifts. It changes with seasons, stress, hormones, arguments, growth. There are nights when someone needs slow, steady presence. There are nights when someone needs to be gathered up with certainty. Healthy couples don't freeze into one mode. They adapt. That adaptation requires attention. It requires curiosity. It requires both people staying awake to each other's signals. Not perfectly, not clinically, but with care. When one element disappears for too long, it doesn't usually explode into crisis. That's what makes it unsettling. There's no dramatic moment, no loud fight. It's quieter than that. The charge fades, the anticipation softens. Touch becomes familiar instead of magnetic. The relationship still functions. The love is still there. But something luminous dims. And the most painful part? It often happens slowly enough that no one can pinpoint when it began. Safety and desire are like breath and heartbeat. One steadies, one stirs. Together they create life. To feel safe and wanted at the same time is powerful. It means you can surrender without fear. It means you can open without shrinking. It means you can be both soft and desired. That balance is not about mastering techniques. It's about staying emotionally attuned. It's about noticing when your partner's body leans toward closeness or craves intensity. It's about being willing to adjust, not defensively, but lovingly. Couples who stay alive aren't the ones who found a perfect formula. They're the ones who keep recalibrating, who keep asking, sometimes with words, sometimes with touch, what do you need right now? And who are brave enough to answer honestly? Because intimacy isn't static, it's a living thing, and living things need movement. Expand point 4 into 500 words with emotions and love. Point 4 brings everything back down to earth in a very human way. Yes, bodies matter, but connection matters more. It's easy to reduce intimacy to performance. Blood flow, stamina, responsiveness. There's a whole industry built on optimizing those things. And to be fair, physiology is real. Circulation affects sensitivity. Hormones affect desire. Energy levels affect engagement. The body is not separate from the experience. It's part of it. When blood flow improves, sensation can feel brighter, more present, more awake. That's not fantasy, it's biology. And sometimes small physical shifts can create noticeable differences. Feeling more online in your body can make you more available to pleasure, more aware of touch, more connected to your own sensations. But here's the deeper truth. No supplement, no powder, no technique can replace emotional attunement. Because intimacy doesn't fade only from physical decline, it fades from disconnection. A man can have perfect performance and still miss the emotional signal. A woman can feel physically responsive and still feel unseen. The body might react, but the heart can remain distant. The couples who sustain something alive understand that desire isn't just mechanical, it's relational. Communication is what turns biology into connection, not interrogation, not awkward interviews, but genuine curiosity, the kind that sounds like, I've noticed something feels different lately. How are you feeling about us? The kind that invites honesty instead of defensiveness. Many men say, I don't know what to ask. And that's vulnerable. Because asking means admitting you might not already know. But that humility is powerful. It signals care. Reading a partner isn't about mind reading. It's about noticing shifts, the way her body responds, the way her tone changes, the way anticipation either grows or fades. Sometimes the most loving question isn't technical. It's simple. Do you feel wanted lately? Do you feel close to me? What feels good to you right now? When those conversations happen, something softens, walls lower, and intimacy becomes collaborative again. Physical tools can enhance experience, they can support, they can help when energy dips or circulation slows. There's no shame in that. Bodies deserve support. But tools are amplifiers. They amplify what's already there. If connection is present, they can heighten it. If connection is absent, they can't create it. Love inside intimacy is about responsiveness, not just physically, but emotionally. It's about noticing when your partner needs reassurance, or confidence, or slowing down, or leaning in. The men who keep things alive aren't necessarily the most technically skilled. They're the most emotionally awake. They're the ones willing to adjust without ego, to listen without shutting down, to care enough to ask. Because intimacy isn't sustained by performance metrics. It's sustained by two people who still want to understand each other. Biology may light the spark, but communication keeps the flame steady. And when both are present, when the body feels alive and the heart feels heard, that's when intimacy stops being something you do and becomes something you share. Today, two women sat in the same chair. One said her husband was too rough, the other said he was too gentle, and somehow they were both describing the same problem. Hi, I'm Dr. Jocelyn, a urologist, and today I want to share something I heard in my clinic that hasn't left my mind. Two women, 1 hour apart, sat in the same chair with opposite complaints about intimacy. Yet they were both describing the same quiet loss.